Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this session today we are going to see how you can run the Appium test for the mobile application testing by using the WebdriverIO and TypeScript project. So far we have seen Appium in terms of Java, if you would have observed my previous sessions, and some of the WebdriverIO project that we were using for the web automation testing. It means that for web applications only. But one of the advantages of the WebdriverIO is that it supports even the mobile application testing as well. And after the Selenium 4 introduced, or the Appium 2.x introduced, so there are a couple of changes that we did which I have listed out in these two different videos. So while I was going through that, what they have done, that the Appium with JavaScript project, they have deprecated it, and now they are saying that if you want to use Appium with JavaScript or TypeScript, then you have to use the WebdriverIO library. So that made me some kind of interest actually to kind of pitch into this, and today I'm going to share my experience of how you can configure the Appium and then the Appium server, the Android and iOS simulators, and then create a WebdriverIO test which will help you to test the mobile application. There are a couple of prerequisites that I will be going through bit quickly because I have already explained those things. So you guys can just refer to my previous repository and you can understand that. So the first thing is that we need Appium for sure. And Appium is very much independent of your language. That's what Appium is famous for. So now if you want to understand the latest Appium or the Appium server, that is the 2.x, you can see this particular video. You can understand what is the latest version of the Appium, what are the couple of changes that they have done that. So that is the first thing. Now there is a Appium Inspector. Now to support this Appium 2.x, they have now introduced a new Appium Inspector. It is the pretty much similar to the old one, but now they have configured a separate utility which you can download and use it. So now I would recommend you guys to go through these two different videos which might not take more than an hour to understand that. Okay, so now Appium wise we should be good. Now I would consider that by this time you are comfortable with the Appium server and Appium Inspector installation. That should be fine. Now the next thing is that we need the Android and iOS, right? In this session today, let's say that I will be getting you guys through the Android, okay? Then later part of this session, or maybe a new session that I will be creating, which we will be testing the iOS application. Now I have created couple of links actually for the Appium to understand what is Appium and then how to set up Appium, then the Android and iOS simulators. So I hope that you guys are starting from scratch. Let's say that you don't have any Android simulator set up in your machine. How do you do that? So for this I have clearly explained actually all these things as a blog post. So if you see that, the first thing is that a guide to configure the Appium, which I have given the video link as well, then the Appium 2.x server, and then the new Appium Inspector. So you can go through these three blogs to understand the Appium. Now the second one is set up the Android and launch the simulator. Okay, so you have to go through this particular link. So I will be opening this too actually real quick. So if you go through this, it's a very straightforward what you call Android Studio application you need to install. Then you have to do a couple of environmental variable setups which I have clearly mentioned here, and then you have to download certain components from the Android Studio. Okay, more details are in this particular video actually, so you can go through that and you can understand. Okay, and then you have to set up the ADB command as well. If you are not set up, don't worry about that, we will see later. Now to launch the Android simulator, you have to use the same Android Studio and you have to download or maybe create a new Android simulator and you can launch it. So that is what I have explained here. And if you want to know more details, you can just refer to these two videos. The same thing for your iOS installation or iOS setup, you need Xcode. It's again another utility. The only condition here is that you need to have a Mac operating system. With Windows, you cannot do that. The same thing, you can download all the components by using this particular command xcode -select space -- install. There are certain CLI commands that it will be downloading it. Once you are done with that, so because we are using Appium 2.x, we don't need this step. Okay, but if you are using the previous version of the Appium server, then you have to install the cathes, and it's a very straightforward installation. You can go inside this link. Okay, now to get the simulator, now let's say that you have set up the simulator from the Xcode. Now it is already launched. There are certain things that we require actually, like for an instance, if it is your Android simulator, you need the Android simulator name. Okay, so for that actually we have used ADB devices. Now this will list the device name that is present or that is launched currently, and that you have to set up or you have to use it in your Appium, so that the Appium test will understand where exactly I need to run my test. See, normally in case of your WebdriverIO test, you are specifying the browser name, right? Because in your system there are multiple browsers are there, Chrome, Firefox, Edge. You need to specify which browser you are going to run it. The same thing, to run my Appium test, I need to specify which simulator. Is it Android, iOS? If it is Android, which device actually? Maybe multiple devices are connected to your system. Okay, or maybe there is a simulator and a real device is connected. So you need to specify that. Now the next moment after device name, you need the app package and app activity. So it means that you need the application after that. And those details as well I have specified into this particular link. So if you go inside this particular link, you will come to know how exactly we can get it, whether it is Windows operating system or Mac operating system. You can get the, if it is your Android, to run. See, now the first thing is that which device you are running, then which application in that device you want to run it, because there are a lot of different applications in your simulators present, right? Now for that you need the app package and app activity, and this is specifically for Android. Now if it is for iOS, you need the bundle ID. Okay, now to get the bundle ID, you need to run this particular line, or maybe you can even get it by your developer actually. So the best thing that even I suggested while we were learning the inspector, I said that the best source is your development people actually. From there you can get the app package and app activity for your Android application. For iOS you need the bundle ID. And if you don't have anything, you need to make sure that your application should be there. Let's say that you have not installed the application yet into your simulator. You can even install it from your Appium test. Even that also we will see that. Okay, so by this time I made you guys confident about the Appium and then the Android and iOS simulator, and then how to launch that. If you're not sure, again spend some time for these two videos and then this tutorial from here up to here actually. Okay, and this Appium locator strategy and all these things, even Appium locator strategy is also important irrespective of any language that you are using. From here Appium test, don't worry about that. So all these things you can look into. It doesn't matter whether you are using Java, TypeScript or any kind of other libraries. Okay, fine. So now the next thing is that we need to create a WebdriverIO project to run my Appium test. Okay, so for that I will be showing you guys from scratch how to set up your project and then add the components that is required for your Appium test. Fine. So for that I will be using Visual Studio Code, and I will be doing a file, open folder. I will choose an empty folder from my system actually. So I've created one. So under my WebdriverIO, I've created this WDIO Appium demo. I'm just opening it. It's a very blank file, or it's an empty directory, so don't worry about that. And I will be opening my command prompt, which you can see it is by default opening from that particular location. How do I set up the WebdriverIO? Because I need the Appium with WebdriverIO. Okay, so to set up the WebdriverIO project, again I have clearly explained this one, and if you're not sure, you can even go back to this particular link. if you see, you can see overview installation of the WebdriverIO. I have clearly mentioned about how do you really use this particular session, and then you can install it. Fine. If you are not sure or don't want to watch that video, no worries. It's a 2 minutes watch. You can just get inside this and you can get to know. If not, stay tuned with me. I will be showcasing you that. So the minimum requirement is Node, which I have already installed. TypeScript and TS, these things I will be showing you in a moment. How do we set up the WebdriverIO project? So for that, I need to run this particular command, which is npm init wdio dot. So I will go here blindly. I will just use it. And before to this, you need to have the node installed. And I will enter. It will take some time to install the WebdriverIO project into this directory. Okay, so now the basic installation is done. Now it will be asking you a couple of questions and we need to answer these things. So the first thing it is asking where you want to keep your automation. I'm saying that on my local. So it is selected. I'm just clicking on enter, and now I will put a down arrow to select Jasmine actually. So that's how I want to create my project. Now what is Jasmine? Now because you are running your Appium test using TypeScript or JavaScript, Jasmine is one of the unit testing framework. Like for Java you are using TestNG or JUnit. For C# you are using MS Test or NUnit. The same thing, Jasmine is a TypeScript unit testing framework. I selected that by clicking on up arrow or down arrow of your keyboard, and then I'm clicking on enter. Now it is asking which compiler you want to use it. Let's say that I'm just using the TypeScript compiler. Now where are your test specs located? I'm just choosing the default. Do you want the WebdriverIO to generate a test files? It means that it will give you a kind of a sample project. No worries. Let's say yes and enter. And now the next thing, do you want to use the page object? Let's say why. It's up to you whether you want to use it or not. Where are your page objects located? Default. And now here it is asking which kind of reporter that you want to use it. Let's say I'm taking the default spec reporter, but later you can change it. Enter. Now wait for, it's a library that it is asking. I would say that yes, install that one as well. Now it is asking which one you need to really use it. Now you see these are all different drivers that is required. Chrome driver, because if you are running into a Chrome browser, you can go with that. But then let's say that I want to use my Appium. So I will just say Appium here. And you see there is Appium. There are a lot of different profiles are used, so you can just use whichever you want. But then at this moment, the service that I need is my Appium service. So I'm just clicking on enter. What is the base URL? I really don't care. So I'm clicking on enter. And it's saying that do you want to run the npm install? Why? Because based on our selection, it just added all the package dependencies here. Now if I say yes, it will install. See, at this moment the node modules was blank. Now it will install everything with respect to the questionnaires that I have answered, all these things, like what these are nothing but what kind of library that I really need. Now after completing this installation, you can see now the packages are also here. So before we were using Chrome driver, or maybe you would have seen that standalone and all those things. But at this moment, I won't be using actually this WDIO Chrome driver and this one actually. I won't be using. I will be using the Appium service. I will show you that as well. Okay, now the second thing is that if you go inside this test folder, right, you see the wdio conf.ts. If you're not sure about that, I would recommend you to get into my WebdriverIO series and understand the basic configuration details. Then you come back here and then we will understand how to run the Appium test. So if you see here, if you go inside this and then there is a services, I chose as Appium, but I don't know, for some reason it is not taking Appium as it is. No need to worry about that. We will install our own Appium service from there if it is not yet installed. Now for this, what I'm going to do, that I will be removing these two. I really don't need this Chrome driver and this two actually. So what I can do, I will be using another library, and this is again coming from the webdriverIO. So wdio slash, and it's something called as Appium service, Appium -service, and this is a very good documentation even provided from the wdio itself, so you can go back and refer to that. And I'm saying that 7.24.0, and this is the version that I want to really install it. And I don't really need anything, Selenium standalone and all these things. If you want to deal with your browsers, you can use it. Now I will open my terminal and I will say npm install, because I have added a new dependency here. Okay, it installed real quick. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is that instead of Chrome driver, I'll say Appium. Now this is nothing but the Appium driver actually. Okay, so the Appium server which I was talking, you really don't need to install, or you have to install that, but you really don't want to really run it as a separate agent actually. Like normally in case of Java tests, what we have to do, we have to go back to the terminal and we need to run it Appium and then enter, or maybe programmatically we need to write an utility which will run the Appium server, and that is not case with the wdio. Okay, here you write just this statement and then it would run your Appium server before running your test. The only thing sometimes we might need is that you need to just specify the port actually 4723. This is the default port that the Appium normally uses. Where are my spec files present actually? So let's say that I don't want to use this particular test. I will just create a new folder under this directory. I will say app test. Let's say some new name I'm giving it. And inside this, I will be keeping all the apps. That is my first thing. Now the second thing is that the specs. I will just say like this. Now under this, I will be copy pasting my Android and iOS application, and under this specs I will be specifying, let's say that I'm taking Android test.ts. The same thing, I will be creating a new file and I will say iOS test, okay, .ts. Okay, fine. Now the second question is that what are the different applications that I need to use it now. So there are a lot of different applications, sample applications, those are available in the online, you can get it. I will show you one of the Sauce Labs application. And you can see there are three different varieties are there. APK is for your simulator or real devices for the Android application. This IPA file is kind of a signed application for your real devices, but this is for iOS or the iPhone devices. There is a zip file, this is .app, this is required when you are using your iOS simulators. That's it. Now let's say that, as I told, that I will be focusing more into the Appium with Android, so I will be taking this APK file. I have already downloaded, I will just copy paste into this apps folder. So give me a moment, I'll drag that. So I have copied it. Now I will just click on this, right click, reveal in Finder, and then here I will be simply pasting it. Next time when I am going to showcase how to run the iOS test, that time I will copy the .app file. At this moment, let's just keep it here. That's it. Now you see that is reflecting here. Fine. Now before writing a test, I need couple of things. See, I need to specify, I told to you guys, right, we need to specify the Appium package, app activity, whether we want to run into the Android or iOS. So these are nothing but we call it as the capabilities. That is nothing but the Appium capabilities, which even we use that. So if you use the Appium Inspector, right, in Appium Inspector, to inspect the applications Android or iOS, we need to specify the capabilities as well. For an instance, if you look into this Android Source Lab, this application, these are the different capabilities I needed to use to inspect the elements. Okay, now for this, let me quickly show you that. So I will open the Android Studio. Okay, I'll go to the virtual device manager, and here I will be just clicking on this Nexus 10 API. This is a tablet, but no need to worry about that. So this launches the simulator, the Android simulator. It will take some time. And here is what actually you got it. And now the application which I was showcasing you guys, right? This particular Source Labs demo application I have already installed. But like I said, you can even install while running your test. Now this is a simple application here. Actually, you can just go back to here. I'll just quickly log out here for now. Okay, so the first time when it launches like this. You can go back to this menu item. You can log in using the username and password they provided. You can add to cart these things, and all these things we will do that in future. At this moment, I will just showcase you to launch this application and log in. Now here, if I just do a start session, and just give me a moment. Okay, so it says that the Appium server is not running. So while you are running your test, you don't really run the Appium server explicitly, but because I'm not running my test, I just want to inspect it. I will open my terminal and I will just say Appium. Okay, because the Appium I already configured it, right, which I provided in that video session. See, Appium server is running. Now it should be able to inspect the Android application from my simulator. And see, now it is opening. Now you can click on any element and you can see the right side panel to see that the locators, like how we are inspecting the elements into the browser, the same thing we can do here as well. All these things I have already specified into the new inspector window, so you can refer to that. Fine. Now how we have used the Appium capabilities here, the same thing we need the capabilities while running the test as well. Now where do we specify these things? That is something we have to use it, the wdio conf.ts. Even if you see the capabilities we were using for browser as well, right? Which browser name, sometimes we need to specify some profile or properties of this browser name or the options. The same thing we need to specify the Appium capabilities as well. The one thing that I need to really do a change here, if you see this tsconfig and the wdio, these both are present inside this test folder. I will be dragging it to my global directory level. So my actual project is this one, right? So I'm just keeping that as a isolated one so that any test can use this one. Now couple of changes I really need here. If you see that the TS node, actually to compile your TypeScript files, I need to specify the tsconfig. Now it is no longer present inside the test folder. It is global, it is present. So I'll just remove this actually. I'll just keep it, because these both are now parallelly each other, same level, right? So I can just specify like this. Now the second thing is that I need to specify the specs path actually. You see that it is going from test. This is my root folder. Then it is going to the test, but I will select as app test. And then under that spec, and it is, I can even rename this one to specs actually, so that it will still stand good. Now whatever the tests are there, because I'm taking as a star, it will run those. At this moment, I'll make sure that the Android test will be only running. Fine. Now in this, I need to specify the Appium capabilities. So fine, let's go to the capabilities section and add a couple of capabilities. Okay, see, I don't need actually this browser specific capabilities, so I'm just removing this one. Now in this case, I will be using the Appium capabilities. Now these Appium capabilities are listed like this. See, the first thing that I need is the platform name, that is Android. Now the automation name, so there are the engine to run my test is the UI Automator 2. This is required to run our Appium test. Now the third thing is that the device name, and that this device name is coming from here. Now if you want to know how I got it, actually, if you go back to this particular link without running this Android Studio, it gives you the list actually here. How do we really need that? So if you go down, there is a command emulator list avds. This gives me the emulator that is launched correctly, the name of this particular device that I've specified here. Then the platform version, which operating system I'm using in my mobile, that is Android 11. Okay, now the application that I'm going to use it. Now the problem, there is an issue, I guess. Actually, I'm still trying to see. When I'm only specifying the Appium package and the app activity, it is not really running the Appium test into the simulator. I have to specify the app path as well. Okay, the actual application that I'm using inside that. I will be doing a digging down more into this particular Appium test with webdriverIO and will let you know. For now, you have to just specify the actual application. So I have specified that this application is under the apps folder, right? You can see that is what I have specified here. Now this join, it should come from the path actually. So I'll just say import, I'll say join from path. This is one library actually. Now you should see the error is gone from here. Okay, so probably I need to just do like this, and then the error is gone. So what I'm trying to do here is that, so this will give me my current directory, this directory path. After that, I'm appending this one. Okay, normally if you give apps, it doesn't take it. Now the second thing is that app package and app activity. So I've specified this too. And I have already explained about how to find out the app package and app activity. Fine. Now I'm adding a new capability, that is no reset equal to true. Now what this does actually, this will not uninstall and install the application every time I run my test actually. If it is already installed, it will not install it. So that is what the benefit of a no reset equal to true. And I would suggest, if you really don't want to install a latest version of the application, don't make it as false. The false is actually default one. Fine. Now the Appium capabilities are ready. The Appium service is ready, which I've specified. And here the port is 4723 because that's how the Appium server will be running actually. Now the next thing is that I need to specify the test case actually. How do I specify that? So I need to inspect, right? For that I need the Appium Inspector, and as always I told, I will launch my application, then I will click on this one. Okay, so click on this, and then after clicking on that, I will be clicking on the login actually. You can see the login button here. Once inside that login, I will be going inside. So if you see this, yeah, you see that this is the login, menu item login. Now see, I'm using the accessibility ID because this is demo application. They made sure that all the elements should have some kind of locators. But if it is not present, you can talk to your developer to get this particular IDs. Now I will even do a separate session about how to inspect this and use different locator strategies. At this moment, I'm just using the accessibility ID and will show you how to use that. Now for this, I will be creating a quick copy paste. I will be doing it. Okay, and here I will be specifying these things. Now you can see, if you go to this particular inspector, let me go back actually. And then if I click on this particular menu, you see that this is called as open menu, and this is the content description, which is indirectly the accessibility ID. How do I really specify this open menu for webdriverIO test? For this, the webdriverIO is saying you can use the await $, but you give a tilde sign here. Okay, I think this is approximate icon actually here. This key, and then you specify the actual string. So I'm clicking that open menu. Then I'm waiting for some time. See, here you can use the browser or the driver. Driver is nothing but it is coming from the browser itself only. Okay, driver.pause. Then I'm clicking on this menu icon actually here. Okay, so this one I will be clicking it. Let me tap on this, and then after this I will be clicking on this login. Actually, now the login is this one, menu item login. Then once you log into this, the next thing is that you need to enter the username and password. So I won't be spending time into analyzing and inspecting everything. I have these things. So this is a basic test case where it will click on the login, it will enter the username and password, it will click on the login button and close the application. That's it. Now for this, as I told, I don't need the IPM servers separately. So I will just do Control C. Okay, I'm not running my IPM server. I don't need my inspector as well because I'm done with my inspection. So I'm closing it. The only two things that I am opening it, one is my test script or the project, and then the simulator with application ready here. Fine. Now let's go back to the command line and run this. Now to run this, actually if you see that, let me just see everything. In the package.json, I've specified that, yep, this one. And see, this is not under test actually. This is globally I have specified. How do I run this? npm run wdio. This will in turn go to this package.json, this script, which will run this particular script actually. Now this will be inside this, we have specified where to pick up the test case, that is from here actually, which application that we have specified inside the count.ts. Now just enter it and I'll keep my simulator aside. Okay, so I see that there is some issue here. Let's see what is this issue. So if you go here, the application does not exist or not accessible. Okay, so it seems like if you see here, the path is incorrect actually because it is under app test. Let me do one thing. Let me drag it outside actually and then move it. Yeah. And then now the path should be fine because it is the actual project after that apps, and that's how it is defined here. Now let me rerun this test. npm run wdio. And you can see it launched the application and it is going to the login screen. We'll enter the username and password. And that's it. So it did run the Appium test using the wdio library. We will see a lot of different things like your page object and some framework designing. How do we run it into the iOS? So those things are pretty much similar. It is just the initial setup is bit something which you need to do. Once your setup is done, then everything else will remain as it is. You can use it as many as times. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for today. In our upcoming sessions, we will see how we can run your Appium test into an iOS device with an iOS application. So stay tuned and do subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.